Thanks, Andy. That was Ocean.
Amazing, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I really, I've got to thank you, Andy, actually, because there's not a day. I mean, I've known you since the mid-90s, hasn't it? Really, and not a day goes by when I do not think of all your amazing work, because obviously I play these guitars on a daily basis. So I actually meeting yourself as, I'm not just saying this was totally and utterly life changing, because I saw your guitars. Reviewed in Music UK. Remember Music UK, mag, with Gary Cooper was the
Oh yeah, yeah.
was the
Gary Cooper,
journalist.
yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah.
And I saw one of your I think it was a Sandpiper
Mm.
reviewed in there, and one of Hugh's guitars was in there as well, an Explorer, a bass Explorer. And I've ever since then I've thought, do you know what, I really would love to have a guitar made by you. And then of course went down to working in Exmouth, and you put the pickup in the 10 string, the Belido 10 string, which is actually
Oh yeah.
with me at the moment. I still have it. Then with the steel strung 10 string, which again is just like, it's a dream to play. I never sit down with one of your guitars and think, okay, what am I going to play? Or something. It kind of suggests a certain thing to play. And also with a 14 string that yourself and Hugh made, it's fabulous. I was going to ask you, Andy, it's an obvious question I've got to ask, is what got you started in guitar making?
What got me started? Well, I when I was I must have been 18. Yeah, when I was 18, I'd been playing guitar for a couple of years. Sort of Bob Dylan songs and Donovan and stuff like that. Sort of folk songs, and and then for some reason or other, I didn't have a guitar at some point, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could make one. And so that's what I did. And I mean, it was a very crude thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but but it works. You could play tunes, and I played it for 2 or 3 years. I used to go busking with it, so I guess you could say I earned my living, if you could call that a living. Yeah, and then yeah, I think after a bit, I wandering about doing the busking and just sleeping out or sleeping on people's floors and whatnot. I thought, I wonder what I could do with my life. And anyway, I ended up at the London College of Furniture, which had a piano tuning course, but they said, well, there's nowhere else you can go to learn guitar making, so we do soundboards, we do strings, we've got wood finishing, we've got all that, and so they accepted me on the course, and there was already a precedent for that, because there was a guy called Stephen Delft, who was an established maker in London, who was already there. He's now in New Zealand, called Simpica Delft nowadays. Anyway, so yeah, so I got a lot of help there, really, from Stephen, and I went to his workshop 2 or 3 days a week, because the college said, well, you might as well go and hang out with him and you'd learn more there. So I did that, and yeah, and then after that, it was just carry on making guitars, and it kind of, I had no sense. I wasn't a businessman. I'm still not a businessman. Yeah, it was something to do. It was a way of life, and it was they fascinated me. Once I started into it, it was like, wow, it was a whole journey of exploration, really. But of course, then you need to buy tools, and then you need to get materials, and then so it sort of, in a way, turns into a kind of a business, in that I was selling guitars for peanuts, really, at the beginning, but managing to get by. I didn't need much money.
Are those
But yeah,
guitars still around today, Andy? Have you seen those guitars your early guitars that you made?
um, well, that original one, that first one, at some point many years ago, I lent it to a friend and it disappeared. I don't know what the hell happened to it, which is a shame, really. Um, Occasionally, I think of building a replica of it in
Mm.
every way. It was it's pretty rubbishy materials and so on, but it'd be quite fun to. Anyway, probably won't. But no, okay. I mean, I come across guitars from, I guess, from sometimes occasionally from the mid 70s, yeah, onwards,
Mm.
really.
Were yourself and Hugh making them together as you know when you were growing up?
No, no, Hugh, he went to Goldsmiths College in South London and did a teacher course
Mm.
in design and whatever they call it. They keep changing the name for all that, but
Yeah,
the workshopy stuff.
sure, yeah.
And he did silversmithing at the college. But he'd done when he was at school, he'd done a project. He'd made a dulcimer, Appalachian dulcimer, and did a bit of a sort of history kind of project on history of the guitar and so on. But anyway, then he went into teaching eventually, and he ended up in Devon, and then I was up in Sussex building acoustic guitars, and he wanted to get out of the teaching,
Mm.
really. He just found it too frustrating, the administration and all that. He said it's not teaching, it's just not, he lost interest, really. And so he came up to Sussex and we started working together, and so he started building electric guitars. Yeah, we worked together for quite a few years, really.
Mm.
But yeah, eventually, um, we went different ways, really. I mean, he
Mm.
carried on making electric guitars, and um, yeah, and yeah, he's carried on ever since, and so have I.
It's brilliant. One thing I'm really conscious about with your work, Andy, because I consider myself so lucky to have three guitars from you, is that particularly for the 22, I haven't got time to I've got time, but I haven't got space to actually show different angles. I'll do that, at a later date with the camera. But
Yeah.
with designing this guitar,
Yeah.
I really get a feeling that your knowledge of old instruments, I mean ancient instruments like the lyre and stuff like that, and the lute, kind of come into play. Is that something that you're aware of when you're making guitars generally? But this, particularly this one with the soprano section, because I remember when it came over to see you, and I mentioned that I didn't really want a machine head here because I wanted to play chords
Yeah.
up there, and I'll actually. I've got so little space I can't actually turn around at the moment. But with the string around the back, what was the idea? What was your idea from that? Where did you get that idea from?
Well, I don't exactly remember the thought process. I mean, it was. I think it was just a case of, okay, there's a problem here. How are we going to solve it? And
Yeah.
it's like, so we've got to be able to tune the strings. So they need to go over the nut, but we don't want tuners in the way of your hand. So we've got to put them somewhere. So yeah, it was kind of just a logical progression, really, to be honest, Paul. But
Yeah.
I mean, you said about the early instruments and stuff. Actually, while I was at the college in London, I used to spend a lot of time actually going off to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and because I got a bit interested in early instruments at the beginning, lutes and so on, and I used to spend a lot of time there just gawping at these amazing instruments that are on display there, and also in the library there are a lot of old books concerning old instruments and stuff. And I made a few lutes. I started doing that, and to the extent that I joined the Lute Society, and I went along to a couple of their meetings. But yeah, it didn't take me long to realize it wasn't my scene, really. I mean, I was a hippie 6-string strummer. Playing the lute was not really on for me. And but what I did, I think I developed through that a respect for the classic. So, I suppose what I absorbed from that was that people were making instruments kind of not really very different from what we do now. They were just in a different configuration, and they had different, types of, there were sit-ins, there were this, that, and the other. But that you can build instruments, and people do build instruments with exactly the same processes, the same materials, for hundreds of years. This has been going on without an awful lot of change. I mean, I suppose probably in the last 50 years that things have changed, and modern life is like the change of technology is exponential, but basically it's the same techniques. We're using wood, we're using the same principles all the way through, and I think I learned a lot from absorbing all that early stuff, and just and when I'm designing something new, I think I tend to, not terribly consciously, but I think I refer back to the real classic kind of, certainly the principles, and I tend to be, I think, quite affected by the design details as well, and I might transform them, or I might modify them, but yeah, it's an influence. So it's a strong influence, I think, I have from the rooted in the classics.
I was going to ask you also, Andy. Obviously, you made the triple neck for John Paul Jones, and a lot of and of course the Mermaids. I can't think of, and I mean, to me, you've made some of the, and I'm not just saying this, you made some of the greatest work of art I've ever seen in my life. The Mermaid guitar, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the greatest. It's unbelievable. But with all those really individual designs that you've made, what gives you the idea for like a triple neck for John Paul Jones, or you're going to build a Mermaid guitar, which has never been done before?
Well, okay, so the triple neck was entirely a practical thing, because I got to know John, and I've been doing little jobs for him. I think I'd already made him he wanted a travel guitar, so an acoustic guitar that was small, and you could take the neck off it and stick it all in a small box, like a briefcase size case, for taking on aeroplanes. And so I did that, and I did quite a lot of repair jobs and setups and things for him. And they used to send me tickets for the concerts. And I remember going to one. I can't remember which one it was. It was probably, when I thought of it, it might have been, don't know, saw them in Brighton, I think, and in London, Earl's Court or somewhere. Anyway, in the middle of their set, they used to sit down on chairs on the front of the stage and do an acoustic thing for a few songs. And John Bonham had a pair of tambourine, what do you call them, bongos?
Yeah.
And Jimmy Page had a 6-string guitar, Martin D something, And John had a 6-string guitar, a 12-string guitar, and a mandolin, all in a row next to him on stands. And so he'd pick one up and play, and then in the middle of a song, he'd put it down and pick another one up. And I don't know, I just thought, well, if he had them all on his lap at the same time, it would be kind of neat, really. It'd be practical. He could just swap from one to the other. But also, what an amazing, bit of theatre. I mean, rock and roll's theatre, a lot of it, isn't it? So, it's a visual show and all that. So anyway, so I thought, I bet I could do that. And I just went home and made it. Didn't tell him.
Really?
No, I didn't want to. I wanted, I don't know, I'd rather get it working and then show him,
Yeah.
So then I made it, and I trundled off down to his house and said, I've got something to show you. And he just went nuts for it. And he said, anyway, he bought it. And it was very plain. When I made it very simple, but after a while he said, oh, can you do some inlays and stuff? So I did all that fancy inlay work on it. But he said one of the best things about this is he said, I can't wait to see Page's face when I walk on with this. Because he'd been, with his Gibson. But so that was, but anyway, it started from a completely practical thing. The moan mode was a whole other thing altogether. For many years, I'd had this idea kind of bubbling over a bit in my head that it would be neat to make a guitar that the body of the guitar was a human body, life size, and in guitars and in string instruments generally, it was very often the soundboard is called the belly, and so the bridge would be on the belly of this. But I saw how I saw it in my mind's eye was a female, but like an ordinary person, with legs and so on. And anyway, it came a point where I just had to do this, and so I started it, and I started with the upper part of the body, the torso, and I was getting into the whole thing with the legs, and I thought, this isn't going to work because it's not going to stand up. I want it to be freestanding, so you could, and with the neck sticking out the side, it was just going to keep falling over.
Sure.
So something happened, and I just thought, a mermaid has a tail which could go anywhere, so you could counterbalance it, you see. So, and that was quite curious, because I mean, that was a whole kind of trip for me, because part of doing it was I wanted to try and find out what it meant to do art, rather than, because making guitars is engineering, really. It's and I just wanted to experience that and see what it was like. And so I had in mind that I thought, well, probably part of the process of art is it's transformational. You go through a trip, basically, when you're doing your painting or whatever it is, your sculpture. And which actually I did. It was a very interesting time for me, mentally and psychologically and spiritually, I guess. And also part of that was that a mermaid is a transformational creature. So the mermaid comes out of the sea, and the tail turns into legs, and vice versa. So this piece that I was working on transformed halfway through, and all of that going on. So it was quite a trip, really. But so that was a bit of a nonsense. But Yeah. I mean, mostly, Paul, I make fairly, you know, I don't do terribly radical designs on the whole. You know, people want an OM type guitar, or they want a, you know, F-style mandolin or a Celtic bouzouki or something. I mean, I think I have, you know, I've developed probably a style in terms of details and decoration and so on that is mine. And I kind of stick within that. I don't, what interests me most actually is the actual guitar as a musical instrument. I mean, you know, it's a tool for art, isn't it? Basically,
Absolutely enables
and
people
that,
to.
yeah, and that's it. And in a way, that's the be all and end all of it. Okay, you can. It is also possible to kind of to get a bit, you know, arty with it and make it nice, and obviously but yeah, essentially for me that's what I'm interested in, and I don't want to be reinventing it every time I make one. So I stick with methods, and I stick with a basic style of decor or whatever, a certain type of binding arrangements, and so I haven't got to think it all through each time. I want to focus on actually getting it. You know, I mean, for me, what is it? You know, a guitar is like, first thing is the neck has got to be like just ultra silky. So it's, I mean, it's a really tactile, sensual instrument, isn't it? So
absolutely,
and it's your left hand there on the neck, which is, you know, it's just got to feel like a dream, you know? So that and be, you know, totally playable to suit whatever it is your style of playing. I mean, different people want it set up different. That's easily done. And and it wants to generally be ergonomically comfortable. I mean, he says, sitting, looking at you sitting with that thing, but yeah.
Actually, Andy, I should say this is actually very comfortable to play. Actually, very comfortable. Although, you know, I get a lot. I've heard every possible joke about this guitar there is ever been, but actually to play, it's actually very, very comfortable, because the way I'll do it when I've got a bit more space. But the neck, and also with the, I've got, to me, see, I've got the 14 string down beside me, and I've got the 10 string as well, which and everything is really, really comfortable actually to play. You know, so it's even though it's an enormous neck, it's I can play chords. You know, I can get right down there. So you know, that is something that is really, even with a guitar like this, it's very, very accessible, because one of the reasons that I wanted this, I definitely wanted you to make this guitar, is that when when actually it arrived in its juggernaut, they reversed down the drive, and I opened it up, and I didn't. I knew in my mind what I wanted to do with it, but when I saw it, I wasn't like, you know, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with that? But it's taken me about 10, 15, even now, all those years, to actually find out really which way to go with it, because the instrument kind of guides me actually in with its resonance. When I hit the low E string, I mean, there's 6 E strings on here. You can probably hear that ringing out now. It's real like piano, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So, and it really, that's the thing with what I find with every one of your guitars. I was going to ask you how but your acoustic guitars seem to sustain a lot more than other acoustic guitars, in my opinion. Where with the 10 string, which I can't get out at the moment, but with the 10 string, with the 14 string, with this, there's an enormous amount of sustain. When you get a tone wood, do you do you use everything you have, or do you kind of is there a method to find out what tone woods are best for the guitar you're making?
Yeah, I think I think with experience, Paul, you just get a feel for it. I mean, you can touch a piece of wood and you can hear it just by the touch, just by how it rustles, how it, or tap it or scratch it. You can, and some woods are just very resonant, or I mean, all material has all solid materials have some kind of resonance. I mean, for musical instruments, wood seems to be what we like to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a guitar out of fiberglass, you can make it out of aluminium, you can make it out of stainless steel, you can, all different materials. But I mean, wood seems to be what we really like to hear. Different woods will have different voices, but it's not just the wood itself, it's then what you do with it. It's how you assemble it, and the dimensions you end up with, and the configuration of all that. I mean, acoustic guitars are quite complicated. They're more complicated than they look on the outside. There's all sorts of stuff stuck on the inside that in order to achieve a balance of strength, because there's a lot of tension there with the strings. So you're trying to achieve a balance between making the thing as sensitive as possible and as responsive as possible, but it's not going to collapse.
Yeah.
So there's all that, and all makers have their ideas about how it works and what's the best way to do it. This, and actually these days with it, I mean, when I started, there was no internet, which was kind of, back in the olden days, life was very different. But
yeah,
one of the nice things with the internet is that the communication that goes on around the whole of the planet between, I mean, I'm sure it happens in other areas as well, but with guitar makers, I mean, we all talk to each other and ask each other advice and give tips and all that kind of stuff, and show off our work, and all of that it's amazing. It's a real global kind of brotherhood and sisterhood as well, actually, and that's fantastic. And you really get to see that how different everybody's ideas are. I mean, and it's wonderful, really. And yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong way with these things. I mean, music, sound is very much, it's on the level of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's a very subjective thing. I mean, one person will love the sound of a big heavy Martin or something, and another person will much prefer a nice delicate little parlor guitar, or and there's room for everything, room for them all.
I think that's definitely a great point. I totally agree, and I think it's even though we've been seeing guitars for forever, since everyone was a kid, they've all seen guitars. For me, there's always a buzz when I see a guitar. I mean, I'm looking at that guitar behind you, thinking that looks absolutely beautiful. How long would it take you to make a guitar then, Andy? I mean, for this guitar, for instance, the 22.
God, I don't remember, Paul.
I
really
think
don't.
I think it was about 4 or
I
5
mean,
months. I think.
it could have been,
I
yeah.
think so.
I mean, there's probably. I mean, a project like that, I need a lot of thinking time and drawing and redrawing and design work basically.
Yeah.
And I like to really make sure I know where I'm going before I start, because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste materials. I want to be sure that it's going to be, take it to the end. And yeah, it's funny actually, just going back to what you just said about we've all seen guitars since we were children. Actually, I was just thinking about that, and I think, to be honest with you, I think I heard guitars before I ever saw one.
Yeah.
Because my earliest memory of my early introduction to music was, my parents used to do Scottish dancing, and they had there were some other couples and they used to go around to each other's houses and strip the willow and the Eights and reel and all that stuff, and we had an old wind-up gramophone, and we used to use that, and there were one or two other records that very occasionally I'd have, but I don't think I was allowed to use it because I was tiny, because they're very fragile, those records, aren't they?
Oh, they are, absolutely, yeah.
And but anyway, and then I started having piano lessons when I was 6, I think, and that was okay at that age, and I liked it then. But then I went to boarding school at the age of 8, and it all changed, and the teacher was a horrible teacher, and it became a drudge. But when I was, some point during that year when I was 8, I had to go into hospital to have my tonsils out, and they had a radio in the ward, and they played, churned out music, and there were 2 songs which actually were like an epiphany for me. It was Green Door. You know that song?
Of course.
I mean, several people have done it since.
Yeah.
I think Shakin' Stevens did it not so long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other one was I think it was called "Singing the Blues."
Oh, yes. I can't remember. Marty Wilde. I'm not quite sure who did that.
No, some American guy that I can't never remember his name. But other people have probably done it as well. It's one of those sort of things. But it was that twanging electric guitar that I was hearing. It was like, wow, what's that?
Yeah. It's a wonderful sound when you hear it, isn't it? I think the guitar generally. I think it kind of encompasses the human voice. It fits so well with the human voice. I think this is the normal section. Let me just get this. The normal section, you can't. I got quite a low voice. So, and then you can, you've got the whole. So it kind of fits in with the range of the voice, which is
That's
really
right.
kind of envelopes the voice around it. I mean, summertime. And the living is easy. So that's it's kind of all in there.
And with the way you use this, you manipulate the strings, you can be pretty much as expressive with it as you can with your voice.
Yeah.
In terms of, modulating the actual what's happening in the string when you're playing it. With vibrato, with bending, and all that stuff. And I think I agree with you. It's very, very close to.
I think one of the reasons I really wanted this guitar built actually is the fact that with the regular guitars here, no, it's you now, and the regular guitars here, but I wanted to hear that. And up here with like a musical box type of thing. Hearing people like Liszt and Chopin and stuff like that would be really wanting that type of big sweeping, almost like a harp. And that kind of opens up the doors for that type of thing. Because I was thinking, it was actually seeing you at Triple Neck with John Paul Jones and thinking, that's amazing, but I would like that on one neck because I want to play across the across it, because I just think strings sound good in any register, but whether it's right up the top, even with you know, up even up right at the top there, or right down here. It still sounds great, you know. And I think, ironically, that top line's Fishing Line up at the top there. That's the rest are made by Hannibach, brilliant strings, and the top was Fishing Line.
But you're right about the across. I mean, you know, an orchestral harp, for example, there's massive range, and I mean, it's just amazing, and that's just in one instrument, isn't it? And they sound beautiful. It's the same with a piano or a harpsichord or something. You've got how many octaves? I don't know.
8 on a piano, I think. This is the range of a piano, pretty much. That's the lowest note on a piano. That's a low A, and this goes to it's a B flat. So I wouldn't really want to go any higher than that. So it's kind of you know, it's almost the full range of a piano. So it really goes kind of, and that's what I was looking for, to have that. So through a PA system, it's kind of maybe not so much on through Zoom, but through a PA system, it really is. I heard an organ in York Minster when I was a kid, and I really loved the 64-foot pipe, you know, and you know, you kind of, you know, there's toupees in the middle of York when it hits the 64-foot pipe, you know, your fillings are rattling, you know, and it's really that type of intense sound, and I was going to ask you, Andy, but what made you decide to use different woods on the front of for the front of the guitar? It works perfectly, by the way.
I don't know. I just thought. I mean, that the treble side, that's Western red cedar, and that from a log that I got several boards from, and I made for my friend Bill Puplett, who's a guitar maker in London. You know him probably. He's got a boat on the Norfolk Broads, and he wanted to. He plays Spanish guitar, and he likes playing a lot of that kind of South American type of Spanish guitar music. Beautiful, actually. He's really good, and he wanted a small guitar, you know, sort of parlor-sized guitar that was small enough to be able to stow in the cupboard in the boat, you know.
Yeah.
So so I made him a parlor guitar, nylon strung with that wood, and it turned out really well, actually. So and the clarity and the trebles are it really worked, and so I thought, we'll do that. But I thought, for the lower frequencies, I thought we're better off with spruce, so stick with that on the other side. On that's why I wanted to have that long sound box mostly for the soundboard, but also obviously for the air as well.
Yeah, with the 3 sound holes, it's a dream, actually, Andy. For me, all the guitars you've made for me is just like, they are, to me, perfect. I would not change anything other than having bigger hands. But I don't think you can sort that out, really. But you know, that's one of the things about it to me is the instrument. Like I say, there is not a day goes by when, even if I don't have the guitars with me, if I'm traveling or something, I just think, wow, I feel so lucky that I have guitars made from yourself and Hugh with the 14. I know it's incredible. I know we're almost out of time, Andy. I've got to play a tune to By the way, just want to thank you for your donation to Randy Keith.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. How is he?
Well, he's kind of making a recovery, but he's in danger of losing his house because his medical bills have been like $10,000 since February. So, but I've been doing this GoFundMe, and we're up to about $2,000. So it's helping. I don't think he's going. I'm hoping he's going to keep his house, because if he's homeless, then that's kind of the end of the road really for him. Because it's a hell of a system, isn't it? Where you can't. I won't put this on the video, but it's. I can't imagine a system where you're kind of thrown out on the street. It's shocking.
It's America, the land of the free, isn't it? What?
It appalls me, Andy. But so he's making. I've put some. I'll send you a link. I'm just going to put loads of videos on the internet to try. I've got some of his albums, and two of my albums and two of his are on my website. So I've been like promoting a. So we're offering people something rather than just asking for money. There's this kind of. So the album I did at the Real World Studios is on there, the Up Close and Personal, and recording new music as well, a lot of new music with this guitar actually. So in that respect, it's going quite well. But thank you so much, because it made a huge difference. Because he was kind of he almost committed suicide in February because the pain. It's a condition where it restricts the blood of the flow of blood to the brain. Yeah. So basically, he's working with a chiropractor to kind of. So it's about a year's worth of recovery. But he plays. I don't know whether you've seen him. I'll send you some videos. He plays the touch guitar. He kind of designed himself. It's like a war guitar, and it's a wonderful. The video I'm just editing at the moment is like a Hendrix thing that he did, and it's world class. He's brilliant. So thank you so much, because it's making a massive difference, and he is making a recovery. And I think we've got enough money to for him to keep his home, because that would be, what are you doing? Yeah. And he lives like 50 miles from Hollywood, so he's not a rich guy. He lives in Rialto, but he plays some of the Holdsworth type of style, but his own style, and he's such a great player, such a great and a lovely guy. He was in the ministry for 25 years, and then he kind of he left, and but as a music, he's done loads of soundtrack stuff. And it's wonderful. So thank you so much, Andy, for that.
Are you getting more donations?
Yeah.
In?
Yeah. I do a Tuesday thing on Zoom. So I've been doing it's actually since September.
Yeah.
I know you've been busy on Tuesdays and stuff.
It's not easy for me.
No, I've done like 9 months every week for the last 9 months, and I've managed to do a different show every week.
Yeah.
It's kind of tricky.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I've been seeing that you've been doing it. Usually Tuesday we go out to a thing, but yeah.
It's been working all right. So I've been using there's a real nice bunch of people there that have donated, and I'm really bad at social media, so I've been looking to improve my social media skills. So I've been on Twitter and stuff like that, and I had a meet and greet with Nitin Soni a while ago. He's amazing. It was a Zoom thing. It was I watched his concert, and there was a meet and greet, so I played for 2 minutes with this guitar for him, and see if he was interested in not in the GoFundMe, but just before that, but seeing if he was interested in possibly working, having me play on some of his stuff.
Yeah.
So so I don't know, but I don't know whether you've heard this one, Andy. I did when I play on the. I had a request for "Summertime" and "Stairway to Heaven" with 5 minutes left in the set. So I don't know.
I saw that. I was saying that actually. You did it. You did it another time. You made a video of that, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if I could just play it for you. If I'd love to.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just put some reverb on my voice. I think it's that time of night where I need some reverb. I'm on a bit of a. There we go. Better. Lovely. Great. summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Oh, your dad is rich, and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing, and you'll spread your wings, and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you. With daddy and mommy standing by. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Summertime,